That 33% rise in drug deaths over the last 3 months, that's undeniable, and that will continue because the drugs have changed. That there's new drugs, you know, that are hitting our streets that we've never seen before. And the rationale for the drug consumption room was written up in 2016. You know, this is 2025. Drug trends have changed. Treatment trends have changed. Like, the world has moved on since they first proposed this idea, and yet they're still going ahead with it. There's loads of evidence that these places don't work and that they've never worked. You know, but there's a really strong activist class. The activist class is very politically motivated. So this libertarian thing that I was saying earlier, that they believe that legalisation's the answer and that everybody has choice and everybody has bodily autonomy, they're just so far removed from the communities that you and I grew up in and live in. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't understand that addiction is, you know, it can be just a natural consequence of poverty. It's a natural response to poverty, like to try and escape. You know, poverty in itself is a trauma, as we know. Not for everybody, but for some people it is. And I'm not saying that everybody who's in poverty ends up in addiction. Of course I'm not, but there's an activist and political class that are extremely vocal and who have control and influence over the media on this. And I think what people like you and I have done over the last 4 or 5 years in Scotland is infiltrate that somewhat and put forward the arguments for why this isn't working. And we've only done that out of grief and despair. You know, we saw with Peter Crykent dying recently as well, how that was, you know, like Peter's use was completely ignored by the media and by the political class. Like, they used him when that was politically expedient. Do you know what I mean? Like, when Peter was, you know, functioning and he was articulate, you know, brilliant salesman, Peter, you'd want him on your team. And he was on our team for a wee while, you know, God rest him. But we saw, like, when Peter, you know, when he spiralled, that how he was abandoned by this political and media class who didn't really want anything to do with him because he was fucked, you know. And, you know, ultimately Peter lost his life. So there's a whole load of dynamics to this that are going on that people don't want to be honest about and don't want to admit.